So can you see the screen now? Can you see the screen now? Okay, all right. Okay, so to continue, so when Krishna mentioned that he was leaving, at that time, all nearly fainted. So who are the ones who nearly fainted? So Subhadra Devi, Draupadi, Kunti. So no surprises there. Uttara, Gandhari as well. Although Gandhari and here's a surprise, Dhritarashtra. So Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, despite Krishna being the ultimate cause of the death of 100 of their sons, you can see here, eventually they at this point, initially they had a grudge. During the Mahabharata time and at the time when all the Kauravas were killed, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were not too happy with Krishna. In fact, there was an episode where Gandhari cursed Krishna. But nevertheless, eventually they got over it. So I'm not sure how they got over it, but eventually here the idea is because they were all living together with the Pandavas. So while they were living together, it's already months, and Krishna's personality is so attractive that even these people, their hurts were all healed, and they were able to reconcile. And beyond reconciliation, they were able to develop attraction for Sri Krishna. So Prabhupada will give his purport. I'll mention a little bit over there. So who else? Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu is Krishna's relative. He's another name for Yuyutsu is Satyaki. Satyaki or Yuyutsu. He's Krishna's relative, and he's also from the Yadava dynasty. They were staying there apparently together. Kripacharya. So Kripacharya was one of those people who survived the Kurukshetra war. There were 12 people who survived Kurukshetra war. The 5 Pandavas, Kripacharya, who else? Ashwatthama, can't remember now. Okay, never mind. There were 12 of them altogether. So Daumya is the priest of the Pandavas. And we have Satyavati. So Satyavati is Bhishma Dev's stepmother. So she must be a very old personality. She is also Vyasadev's. At one point of time, Satyavati was married to Vyasadev. So these were all the people who nearly fainted. Why? Because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Sharanga Danvanaha. So this is a name for Krishna, Sharanga Danvanaha, the bearer of the conch. So Prabhupada's purport here is, Lord Sri Krishna is so attractive for the living beings, especially for the devotees. So here we have especially the devotees, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, and Yuyutsu. And it's not only for the devotees, also for all living beings. So being in the presence of Krishna, no more asat sangha, right? So Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, they no longer had asat sangha. That means bad association. Duryodhana was no longer there to poison their minds, and instead they had only sadhu sangha. So therefore they had the association of Krishna, all the stages. He had the association of the Pandavas. So you see how the power of association completely changed the perspective of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. So eventually even they could not bear the separation of Krishna. So that it is impossible for them to tolerate separation. So the intelligent, and the next verse of the Bhagavatam, the intelligent called the Buddha, who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees. So this establishes my theory. Sadhu Sangha just now, I was studying. We were wondering how Dhritarashtra and Gandhari became so attached to Krishna. So here is the statement. Because of association. Sat Sangha. not Asat Sangha. Asat Sangha is bad association. So Sat Sangha, in the presence of lack of Asat Sangha, will have only one uh, will have only one fruit, and that is devotion to the Supreme Lord, or attraction, at least attraction to the Supreme Lord to begin with. Hmm? So the intelligent, the Buddha, so you need to be intelligent. So one has to be intelligent to appreciate satsanga and throw away asat sangha. So this is also one of the instructions given in the nectar of instruction. So asat sangha tyaga, right? So that's mentioned as one of the 6 things to be avoided. And satsanga, to take in good association, that's one of the 6 things to be done, the do's. So, and have become freed from bad material association, mukta dussa sangha. So Duryodhana is no longer there. All the negative people are no longer there. So what happens? So therefore can never avoid. So such a person can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. So this is the wonderful benediction of Sadhu Sangha in the absence of Asat Sangha. So both has to be there. If we are having good association, but at the same time we are adverse to getting rid of our bad association, right? Then it's not easy to develop this, because it's like a obstacle each time. So this is important, right? So therefore, in the nectar of instruction, the verse is there, right? 6 things to avoid, 6 things to do, and amongst those, to avoid bad association and to foster good association. So the next verse of Srimad Bhagavatam: how then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? So can you imagine the Pandavas, when they were going to lose Krishna's association, they were quite distraught. You know, in future, when Krishna leaves the material world, the Pandavas who were actually reigning Hastinapura, Yudhishthira Maharaj could not tolerate Krishna's separation. At least now they know Krishna is only going to Dvārakā. Okay, we can still, see Krishna, we can still hear about him. But when Krishna already left the material world, later on, Bhagavatam will describe later on, though they were the kings of the entire earth, Yudhishthira Maharaj, you can see the picture here, he just renounced everything. The 5 Pandavas, together with Draupadi, and all of them, they just renounced their entire kingdom. They felt that the kingdom had no joy, nothing. They just couldn't live without, because you can just imagine, they practically grew up with Krishna. Every aspect of their life was with Krishna. And when Krishna was no longer there, they just couldn't tolerate that separation. So you can get a glimpse of their feeling when Krishna was leaving for Dvārakā. So how could they not tolerate? They could not tolerate his separation. How do we know this? So for they had been intimately associated. So why they couldn't tolerate is because intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him. So it's practically day to day. And we can just imagine, if we knew such a person who was so wonderful in quality, naturally we will become attracted to that person. Naturally, when we lose the association of that person, we feel that, my God, life is empty, right? So this is and many times, multiple times magnified, this is the Supreme Lord himself, the Madhurapati, the Lord of sweetness, they had association with, right? So all their hearts were melting, Dhruta Chetasa, for him, on the pot of attraction. So Prabhupada translates it that way. So what he means here is, this was simply external attraction. By the external attraction, and also from the sweetness of the Lord's relationship. So all their hearts were absolutely melting. Chetasa means the consciousness or the heart. So drutas, to melt. They just couldn't tolerate it. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. So this cannot be imitated. This cannot be something which you can pretend. So it was not something which they pretended. It was natural for them. So Prabhupada gives his purport. This association is made possible not only by personal contact with the Lord. So you may think, oh, they have personal contact. They are so fortunate. If only I had personal contact with the Lord, or even if only I had personal contact with my guru, or if only I had personal contact with devotees. But you see here, this association is made possible not only by personal contact with the Lord, but also by association with his name. So simply by associating with his name, fame, form, and quality. So how do we associate with his name? This is easily understood by chanting, by kirtan, right? This is association with his name. Fame, by hearing about his glories from Srimad Bhagavatam. Form, by appreciating his beautiful deity form, his features, hearing about his description about his form and qualities. So just by associating with them, how do we associate with all this? We have many ways. One is hearing. It begins with hearing, right? And by chanting kirtanam. So sravanam, kirtanam, and putting all inside our mind, smaranam, remembering them, and by padasevanam, by serving those people, by serving the deity, right? So this is all possible. So here we have the female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Devaki Sute. So Krishna here is called by the name Devaki Sute, the son of Devaki, because he's going to Dvārakā, and Dvārakā is where Devaki is. So therefore Devaki Sute. The female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety. So generally, the ladies have a softer heart, and it's easy for them to tear up, right? So they could stop their tears only with great difficulty. Why would you want to stop their tears, one may ask? Because these ladies were not thinking about themselves. They were thinking about Krishna. They were worried because they feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. Abhadram. The opposite of misfortune is fortune, which is called Shubhadram. So therefore Shubhadra. So they didn't want to cause Abhadra, for misfortune, right? So because of that, because of their concern for Krishna, therefore they tried to stop their tears with great difficulty. So these were very, very great devotees of the Lord. So Prabhupada's purport. Therefore, ladies who were the wives and daughters-in-law of those who died. So who are these ladies? The wives and the daughters-in-law of those who died in the battlefield. So all of them have developed this attraction for Krishna. They never came in direct contact with Krishna sometimes because, there are millions of people there in Hastinapura. And even to come to direct contact itself, it means that they were very, very great devotees. Like, for example, the Pandavas or the queens. But what about the rest of them? Even the rest of them developed so much of attraction for Krishna. They did not come into direct contact. So it was possible for them to develop this kind of attachment simply by hearing. Just like Arjuna also, I mentioned earlier how Arjuna developed this liking for Subhadra, and how Subhadra also heard about Arjuna and developed this liking. So simply by hearing about one person, one can develop this kind of attachment, right? So what more to speak about the reservoir of all sweetness, Madhurapate, Krishna himself. So Srila Prabhupada's purport, but all of them heard of him. See here, all of them heard of him and his great activities, and thus they thought of him. So with Shravanam comes Kirtanam and therefore Smaranam, remembrance. talked of him, Kirtanam, his name, fame, glories, etc., and became affectionate also, like those who were in direct contact. So just like fire and iron. So iron and fire, you bring iron close to fire, it becomes hot. Eventually, it becomes just like fire. So the same analogy is understood here. Because, why? Because it's not an ordinary person we are talking about. Even for mundane things, we can develop a shadow of this kind of feelings. What more to speak about the absolute? So Krishna is absolute. There is no difference between his name, form, quality. It's not a mundane name. It's not a mundane form. We cannot say water, 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 and then become satisfied with our thirst. We have to drink that water. Whereas by saying Krishna, 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 we can become satisfied with our separation from Krishna. So that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu managed his separation with Krishna. That's how the gopis held their life air in separation of Krishna. So by chanting constantly. So this was the way they held their lives. I'm going to finish shortly. Next verse. While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapura, different types of drums. So there are many types of drums, Vedic drums, which are mentioned in the Vedas and also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like the Mridanga. So Mridanga is the first mentioned. So that's the sweetest. Then the Dola, then the Nagara. A Nagara is a type of big drum, a bigger, something like this one here I'm showing, big drum. Sorry, this is a Nagara. I specifically looked for a Nagara. This is a Nagara, looks like this, right? And the Dunduri and Dundubi. So Dundubi was a drum. It's a type of big drum also. And different types of flutes, like and then they mentioned the Veena. So these are all Vedic instruments mentioned in scripture. You don't find the harmonium there. Harmonium is not a Vedic instrument. So that's why we don't usually play it for Arati. Arati, you should have Vedic instruments. So, but everything can be used. If you can add on to that, it's fine. So Gomukha and the berry. Berry is this one. So the word berry comes from scary, very scary. So this musical instrument gives a very scary sound. So you would have heard some in Tamil movies, like that, a horrible sound. So this instrument, the horn, is used for that. Sometimes Kali Puja, they begin with that kind of instrument, right? All sounded together to show him honor. So these are all sounded together. These are ways to show honor. So we can learn how Vedically we can show honor. So out of the loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on top of the palace, and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord. So it's very nice. A lot of purports Prabhupada gave here on culture of women during the Vedic time. The culture and Vedic time means not a bygone time. It is what Krishna likes. So this is Vedic time is synonymous to what Krishna likes. So Srila Prabhupada's purport, this shyness, so shy, they are very shy. So affection, shyness is specifically mentioned here, right? And they showered flowers upon the Lord. So this shyness is a gift of nature to the fair sex, and it enhances their beauty and prestige. So a shy lady, I tell you, I know one girl in university. My wife also knows. It was our classmate. She was quite pretty. She was pretty. She was not very pretty. There are many other ladies, girls who are also quite pretty. But this girl, despite not being the top most beautiful girl, but she was beautiful also. She attracted so many people. All the boys in my university, they all wanted to go and propose to her, or somehow go and. So simply because she was a very, very, very shy girl. So I actually saw this with my own eyes, how shyness made her so much more beautiful and made so many men come to her. She had so many people coming to. I know her; she's my classmate. So, and therefore, this is a testament of the power of this statement here, Prabhupada's statement. It enhances their beauty and prestige, even if they are of a less important family, or even if they are less attractive. So this is the way we should try to inculcate this in our children. So we should not lose uh, this Vedic wisdom about how. So Prabhupada further talks, a sweeper woman commanded the respect of many respectable gentlemen simply by manifesting a lady's shyness. Half-naked ladies in the street do not command any respect, but a shy sweeper's wife commands respect from all. So this is the power of a chaste and shy lady, right? So they can actually develop yogic powers. So there are many examples of this. So if a man were to get powers, how he has to get powers is he has to sacrifice his senses. He has to maintain very strict austerity and cut his senses, then he can get powers. Whereas a lady is different. A lady's power is mainly from the chastity and the shyness. So there's a story of Narayani. This Narayani was a woman, extremely chaste and extremely whatever woman, shy as well. She had developed the power to stop the sun. Even Lord Indra couldn't stop it. Of course, there was a story behind it. Won't go into the details now. So anyway, so basically, this is the purport from Srila Prabhupada about the Vedic civilization, right? So the Vedic civilization, I just mentioned that word, allows very restricted mixing of women and men, woman and man, just like the butter. The butter must melt in association with fire, and therefore they may be brought together only when it is necessary. And shyness is a check, even then, to the unrestricted mixing. It is nature's gift, and it must be utilized. So, as you know, the men are the butter, and the fire are the woman are the fire. So when you bring butter to the fire, the butter will melt. It cannot help itself. You can see this in psychology. If you study psychology, you will see this happening. If you are a teacher, you will see this happening in mixed schools also. You will find that the boys will always try to, if the boy is not performing, sometimes you put the boy next to a girl and then have a class, the boy will try to show off. He will try to somehow say, we all went through this in our lives, I suppose, so you'll try to act better, they will try to dress up better. And the girls also similarly will behave. I don't know how the girls might behave, but then there is this kind of tension. So this tension sometimes might come as a distraction. And therefore, it's best to keep them separate. Shyness is a check to the unrestricted mixing. So this is basically Vedic civilization, which is not really outdated. It's not outdated. It is actually simply misused. So people take advantage of situations. So nevertheless, we won't talk into that now. We can have a extend. We can speak with the Vaishnavi group for that. So at that time, next verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, next verse, at that time, Gudakesha, the conqueror of sleep, right? So Gudakesha has two meanings. It also means great warrior. It also means conqueror of sleep, right? Who is the intimate friend, Priyaha, intimate, of the most beloved. So the most beloved here is Priyatamasya. So Priya and Priyatamasya. So that means they are very intimate, right? Between Kṛṣṇa and the Pandavas. So at that time, Gudakesha, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved. So he's talking about Arjuna here, took up an umbrella. So you can see here in this picture, Arjuna took up an umbrella. So umbrella is not an invention of the British. It is Vedic times. So it's called Atapatram. So we can refute there's one, there are people saying that one British man invented an umbrella. So that's not true. It's definitely there in Vedic times. You can see even in the ancient temples, there's umbrellas brought for the Urvalam, So which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls. So all this was already, so you can imagine the opulence of the time. Uddhava and Satyaki. Satyaki is the Yuyutsu, which I mentioned just now, Yuyutsu. Another name for Yuyutsu is Satyaki, Krishna's relative. Uddhava is also there. Uddhava was apparently there. Uddhava is Krishna's relative, dearmost relative. Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans. And Madhupati, the Supreme Lord, the reservoir of all sweetness, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. So as he was walking along the road. So this is a description of the pastimes of the Lord. So you can see they are full of very nice descriptions about the Lord. All these descriptions are given is for us to meditate at the time of death. So if you can meditate like this, if you can imagine that Krishna walking covered with flowers everywhere on the road. So when we hear about this kind of descriptions, it may strike us at the time of death. So that's why these descriptions are there. At the time of death, we're not going to think about philosophy. We're not going to think about, Krishna is the supreme Lord of all or whatever. Yeah, it will come step by step by step. But ultimately, it is the descriptions of the Lord which will remain in our minds. So that's the purpose of these beautiful poetic verses of the Bhagavatam. So it was being heard here and there that benedictions being paid to Krishna were neither nanurupanurupascha. That means they were neither befitting nor not befitting. So they were not befitting or not here. Na anurupa. Anurupa means befitting. Na, not befitting. It can also be befitting. So what does that mean? So all these descriptions and all these benedictions they were throwing upon Krishna, they were glorifying him with so many verses and prayers. So it's mentioned by Bhagavatam mentions here, Sanaka Goswami says that these descriptions, they are neither befitting, they are also neither not befitting. So why are they not befitting? They are not befitting because the Krishna is nirgunasya. Krishna is a supreme Lord. He's nirguna. He doesn't have any material qualities. There is no material qualities. So if you say that Krishna is Yudhishthira Maharaja's friend, he's the sister of Subhadra, all this is not really transcendent. It's transcendental. It's beyond the body, right? So therefore, Prabhupada explains, right? In the transcendental world, there is nothing contradictory. So therefore, it is befitting, anurupa. However, if you were to say in a material platform that Krishna is a cousin of this person, or Krishna, the Supreme Lord is the son of Devaki, so, the Muslims will never understand this. The Christians and the Christians can understand because they understand the concept of Mary, Mother of God, right? But the Muslims cannot understand. To them, God is God. How can God become the son of this person or the child of that person? All right, they cannot understand this. So they are right. They are correct because the Supreme Lord is God. He is nirgunasya. So in terms of Islam, it's correct. It's not wrong. But our philosophy is achintya beda abeda. It's simultaneously, right? Both impossible and possible. So therefore, what the Muslims cannot understand is the next part of it, which is the gunatmanaha. He is also full of qualities. So he is nirguna, at the same time he's gunatmana. He's the Lord of all gunas. He's the reservoir of all gunas. So these two words are contradictory. Nirguna, that means no guna. And here is gunatmanaha, the soul of all gunas. So it's contradictory, but Prabhupada says, this is our philosophy, achintya beda beda tattva. There is no contradiction because this is all transcendental. He is both, right? Therefore, he is Brahman and he is also a form, not just formless alone. So when they are applied to the absolute person, they lose all contradiction and become transcendental. See the word here? They lose all contradiction and become transcendental. So this is the finest detail which only Vedic scriptures can explain. The Christians have an inkling of this. They can understand a little bit about this, right? But fully we can understand in Vedic scriptures, especially in Krishna's pastime. Example, Makanchor, you know, a god who is a thief. You say like that to the Muslims, they will kill you. So God cannot be a thief, right? God owns everything. So in that sense, he's nirgunasya. But at the same time, he is a thief. And because he is a thief, everybody is very attracted to that pastime. They call him a thief. So that's gunatmanaha. He's the soul of all the mellows. So therefore, there's and it's beyond our understanding. It is absolute. So therefore, there is no contradiction. So absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. So the qualities of the Lord are very wonderful. So therefore, the devotees give choice prayers, beautiful poetry. So therefore, the Lord is the recipient of these choice prayers, which are both befitting and unbefitting. So therefore, he is known as Uttama, the Uttama Shloka. He is the ultimate beneficiary of all verses, right? So Uttama Shloka here means who is sung in select poetry. He is the ultimate goal of all verses. He is the main point of poetry. Those days, so poetry, music, songs were all done only for the purpose of glorification of the Supreme Lord. That was in Satya Yuga. And then in Treta Yuga, the Devas also received poetry, music, and all that. And in the Dvāpara Yuga, it extended to the kings. And then in Kali Yuga, it extends to all kinds of rubbish and all kinds of nonsensical people. We sing in poetry about some mundane things, right? So this is the misuse of music, misuse of poetry. The ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapura began to talk. So you see here the word Sanjalpa. So this is gossip. So we are going to learn about gossip, how to gossip correctly. So the ladies began to gossip about him. So this is what we will cover in our next class. So this is what are the topics that we have covered so far. Yudhishthira Maharaja's reign, Krishna takes his leave, and the Kuru Narya Sanjalpa, the gossip or the discussion of the Kuru Narya, the ladies of the Kuru dynasty. So this is what we are going to discuss in our next class. So this will be from verses 20 to 31. It's very nice prayers. We will talk about it in the next class. So, but before we go there, before we end, I just want to mention here, the verse continues. This Sanjalpa, this gossip that I'm talking about, this gossip of the ladies, not the gossip of the Brahmana or gossip of whoever, gossip of the ladies of the Kuru was more attractive. Manahara. Hara means it's like stealing. Manahara steals the mind. It steals the mind of who? Steals the mind of Krishna himself. This talk was more attractive to Krishna than the hymns of the Vedas. Why? So Prabhupada gives a purport. Anything sung in the praise of the Lord is Shruti mantra. So even if you say poetry mundanely, but in praying to the Lord, that's Shruti mantra already. Remember there's one verse in Bhagavatam, the early chapters, which says that even if composed imperfectly, right? This is the part where Vyasadeva and Narada Muni were talking about the Bhagavatam, right? Even if composed improperly, incorrectly, still they are glorified. Whereas the mundane literatures, even if they are perfect, they are just a place fit for crows. Remember the part, crows and swans, right? So even if such verse, this is the verse, right? This is the verse. I put it, I forgot. Tat vag vishargo janatagaha viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abaddavati api namani anantasya yaso ankitani yat shrivanti ghayanti grinanti shadava. Even if such verses are improperly composed, devotees hear them, describe them, and accept them as bona fide and authorized. The ladies who were all absorbed in the thought of actions of the Lord developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom by the grace of the Lord. This is a very nice sentence. These ladies, simply being absorbed, simply they were not great learned pandits. They were not philosophically trained. Ladies in those era, they are not philosophically trained, right? Despite that, simply being absorbed in the thought and actions of the Lord, developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom simply by the grace of the Lord. This is a very, very important statement. Therefore, Rupa Goswami stresses that bhakti doesn't depend on jnana, it doesn't depend on, what's the other one? Vairagya. Neither jnana or vairagya it depends on. It depends simply on the grace of the Lord. So simply being absorbed in the thought, jnana helps. Certainly it helps, right? These two definitely help. But it is not that without these two, you cannot get bhakti. It is still possible to get bhakti. Just like, you know, the pastime where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to South India and he saw that devotee who was trying to read Bhagavad Gita, but he was illiterate. Simply by looking at the picture of the Bhagavad Gita where he saw Krishna being the Parthasarthi, right? He developed tears of ecstasy, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, you have developed the goal of jnana and vairagya already. So similarly, one simply thinks about the deity form of the Lord, likes to listen to the pastime of the Lord, hears about the greatness, the glories of the Lord, and chants the name of the Lord. Simply by the grace of the Lord, we can develop this Vedic consciousness. So we don't have to try too hard. We just have to focus on these things. At the same time, it can go on side by side, but the focus has to be on the do's. So the Vedic hymns in the Upanishads are sometimes, why the verse just now said it's more pleasing than the Vedic hymns? It's more pleasing than the Vedic hymns because sometimes the Vedic hymns are rather impersonal. They talk about Brahman. Like Upanishads are sometimes indirectly directed to the Supreme Lord. So that's why it was not as sweet. But the talks of the ladies, although not learned scholars, were directly spoken of the Lord. So therefore, they were sweeter to the Supreme Lord's ears. So therefore, they begin their gossip. So I will stop now. The gossip we can continue in the next discussion. So Hare Krishna, any questions here? Okay. So looking forward to the gossip. All right. Right. So there's no question. Yeah. So thank you for listening. So yeah. So with that, we'll end here. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kalpatarubhya evacha titanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.